Why are these four called the disaster curses? What does that classification even mean? How are they formed and why are they different? Let's talk about it. So before we talk about the disaster curses specifically, let's just very briefly talk about cursed spirits in general in the world of JJK. And these things are formed from cursed energy, which is born of negative emotions. So the more negative emotions there are out there, the more cursed spirits they're going to be. Now, they don't have to be associated with a specific fear because negative emotions exist untethered to specific fears, right? You could just be having a bad day, you know? But that could ultimately coalesce into a cursed spirit, but probably a weak one like this. Now let's go to the other end of the spectrum and talk about very powerful cursed spirits. These are often going to be tethered to a specific fear because let's just think about it, right? Let's say you go out, you're having a bad day, you stub your toe. You're putting out negative emotions, you're putting out cursed energy, but it's not that much, right? It probably won't even coalesce into a cursed spirit, or if it does, it'll be very weak. Now compare that to the sum total of humanity's fear of the ocean, right? We're talking about so many negative emotions surrounding that subject that's going to translate into a vast amount of cursed energy. So that cursed energy will coalesce into a very powerful cursed spirit, aka the disaster curses. As Mahito explains to Junpei, humanity's fear of things such as the earth, forests, and the ocean was so vast that these entities decided to hide themselves before they had even fully formed. So this cursed energy conglomeration, if you will, gained sentience before it gained form. And because of that, it hid away and gathered even more cursed energy until it could ultimately manifest into these very powerful forms that are different from normal cursed spirits because they have self-awareness and also the ability to communicate, which, you know, like the fly ones I showed earlier aren't going to be having a conversation with Gojo. So it's this level of strength and self-awareness that separates disaster curses from normal cursed spirits. However, it's important to note that disaster curse is not an official designation. It's just a colloquial name given to them due to their affiliation with natural disasters. Again, fire, earth, water. Humanity's not really one, but you know, you get it. So now that we got that background information out of the way, I want to address a few questions I've gotten around this subject. And shout out to Gara for the sponsored video. Thank you so much for the support, man. So our first question here asks, could the power of disaster curses fluctuate due to the amount of fear associated with them? And the example given here is, say Jogo is at an 8 out of 10 power-wise. If Mount Vesuvius erupted, would that crank him up to a 9 or a 10? And so my personal analysis on this would be no. I think that maybe the potential of a disaster curse, if you will, is dependent on the level of fear associated with that thing before they're born. So like, you know, if Mount Vesuvius erupted before Jogo manifested into physical form, then I think, yes, he would get far more powerful because that fear would be more prevalent in the world, right? There would be stronger negative emotions associated with that. But once Jogo's already formed and Mount Vesuvius erupts, I don't think he gets an influx of power. If anything, I think maybe cursed energy and negative emotions would start collecting again, specifically related to Mount Vesuvius, or maybe the next time Jogo is reborn, if you will, because the way disaster curses work is they're not ever fully gone. And what I mean by that is, you know, in Shibuya, Jogo dies, right? Jogo will one day come back, but it won't be Jogo, right? But a cursed spirit associated with the fear of earth and volcanoes will one day remanifest because humanity is still going to fear those things. So it won't explicitly be Jogo with the same personality, but it will be the disaster curse of the earth. And obviously take everything I'm saying with a grain of salt because I don't know, because Gege never explicitly spelled out these rules for us, right? But I would imagine that if it did work that way, where a curse would get an influx of power, if there was a surge in the fear associated with it, we would have just seen an example of that. Now, obviously Mount Vesuvius never erupted, or, you know, there wasn't a tsunami in the case of Dagon, but with Mahito, a lot of messed up stuff is happening all the time regarding humans, right? So I think if Gege wanted it to work that way, he would have at least shown us like Mahito getting an influx of power at some point. So your next two questions kind of go hand in hand, along with the first one as well, so I'm going to kind of talk about them at the same time. But you ask, could there be multiple versions of the same disaster curse, and could there be more besides the ones we know? So I'm going to say yes to both. So just like I was talking about in the first question, let's say Jogo exists and Mount Vesuvius erupts. You know what? Let's say Yellowstone erupts and just every volcano erupts, right? There's going to be so much negative emotion and therefore so much cursed energy around that thing. It is absolutely going to coalesce into a new cursed spirit. And the thing to remember here is that disaster curse isn't a real thing. It's just a code name, right? It's better to think of them as just all special grade curses, meaning curses so powerful they're ranked special grade, right? So it's not as if there can only be one ocean disaster curse or volcano disaster curse. So absolutely, I think another fire slash earth slash volcano curse could spring up even if Jogo already existed. And then could there be more besides the ones we know? Of course. One important thing to remember is that, sorry, I'm getting ahead of myself here. Tengen has barriers set up so that cursed energy is, for the most part, contained to Japan. There is some in other parts of the world that we've seen, but mostly it's all been contained to Japan. So that's why we haven't really ever seen reference to, the massive, gun curse spirit in America, which, let's be real, would probably low diff Sukuna if it existed. So they're mainly all contained to Japan, which is why we only see those versions, and we only hear about curse spirits there. But yeah, absolutely, I think even within Japan, there could be other curses that are easily special grade level or akin to the disaster curses that just haven't gotten screen time. And like I, did with the gun example in America, you could just go wild with what potential disaster curses there could be if cursed energy was worldwide. These are kind of cool things to consider if we ever get like a spin-off story or, if the direction of JJK, probably not in this version since we're getting close to the end, but if you ever did a sequel or something and cursed energy did spring up in other parts of the world, just what those could look like. And then finally, y'all, while we're on the subject, I had this question from Belted who wants to know who wins between Shibuya Sukuna and all 4 disaster curses at full power. And Sukuna absolutely slams. It's not even close. Low diff. We're talking about 15 finger Sukuna here, and I honestly think he would beat all 4 of them at full power with way less fingers. I don't want to give a number, but like Shibuya Sukuna is more than capable. I don't honestly think anyone in the story can do anything about 15 finger Sukuna that's not named Gojo. He's just that strong. He's just on that much of a different level compared to everybody else. So yeah, really easy fight for him in my opinion. That's not to throw shade at the disaster curses though, right? Because I mean, like I said, if you're not Gojo, good luck. Alrighty, y'all, that's going to do it for this one. And just a reminder that we do have a Discord now. So if Discord is your jam, come hang out with us there. You should be able to find a link in my profile on whatever platform you're watching on. And if you are watching on YouTube, I will also link it down in the pinned comment below. Other than that, I want to give another shout out to Gara and Belted. Thank you guys so much for the support, and I will see y'all in the next one.